out of relating with China on the program tonight. My guests are three. We have the press in studio, a private legal practitioner and founder of a multinational legal firm, David Ofosu-Dorte. His firm is AB and David. David, great to have you.
Thank you.
We'll also be joined by Professor Lloyd, Amoah, who is the head of the Center for Asian Studies at the University of Ghana. Get in touch on different platforms. You have a WhatsApp number. If you are watching on Facebook, there's a stream you can comment on. And of course, you can also send us a Twitter comment with the hashtag The Point of View. Before we get into the discussion, I want to show you a quick summary of what's been going on in Beijing with President Akufo-Addo and his colleague African leaders in China.
For the second agreement. For the addendum, let's welcome the Honorable Minister of Roads and Highways, Mr. Kwasi Amoah-Atta, and the President and the Executive President of Power China, Mr. Li Yanming, to sign the agreement. China and Africa share one destiny, and we're engaging in close relationship and cooperation, and we are making win-win progress and development. And the friendship between China and Ghana can date back to a very long time, and we enjoy close ties. And this time, during your state visit to China, Mr. President, you and President Xi Jinping has raised the ties between China and Ghana to a new level, therefore giving us the best condition in history for the enterprises of the two countries to engage in deeper and wider cooperation. One of the brand of Power China, Sinohydro, has entered the Ghana market in the year 2004, and we have achieved the confidence and trust from the Ghana government and people. So we have successfully undertaken some constructions of some projects, and we have built the single largest hydropower station currently in Ghana and probably in the whole West Africa region, the Bui hydropower station, and therefore enhanced the confidence and trust of the people and government of Ghana to us. And Power China has noticed that Your Excellency, Mr. President, you are actively promoting the development of infrastructure in Ghana, including the sectors such as transportation, housing, and energy. And also you are promoting the economic development. Therefore, we believe that we are presented with the opportunity to provide services to the implementation of Your Excellency's blueprint and provide services to the economic and social development of Ghana, and therefore enhance our cooperation with all sectors in Ghana. And more importantly, during your talk with President Xi Jinping, you have reached a lot of new consensus on how to enhance cooperation between China and Ghana and how to further implement the Belt and Road Initiative. Therefore, we believe that this can give us a better opportunity to give a full play to our advantages and for us to participate in the social and economic development of Ghana. And therefore, today I would like to take this opportunity to promise that Power China, according to the consensus you have reached with President Xi Jinping and according to Ghana's development need, we will further enhance cooperation in some projects. For example, we will do a better job in the priority infrastructure projects. and according to your instruction, we will.
So there you had it, an interpreter explaining to the Ghanaian side of the delegation the specific things to expect from the deal. We heard a few things. The Belt project, it's a huge project we'll discuss. But let me turn to my panelists quickly, starting with Guta, because in the past few weeks, the Guta has not been happy with a few things. But just before we get in there, Doc, good evening.
Good evening.
So as traders in Ghana, our government is in China together with other African countries. It's very clear that there are big things coming from China to us. Since you are importers, I guess a lot of the things you import are from China. So this must be very positive for you.
Yeah. It depends on government orientation itself. The drive is towards investment. And so if they also discuss issues of trading, for us, what is most important is that they should make things clear to the Chinese government that much as they are helping our continent, and for that matter, Ghana being among them, they should also see the negative repercussions of this influence and dominance that Chinese is bringing to bear. You look at the foreigners, the Chinese in the retail trade. I know he has talked about the influx of the Chinese in the gold mining area. Our investment laws are so clear, so it can give a pinch also to the Chinese government that much as you are helping us, your people are also pulling it down.
So talk about the benefits for traders like you in the trading sector. What benefits do you get from China?
Yeah, we get a lot of benefit. You recall that somewhere early 70s and all that, we were buying goods from the European countries, especially the Britain, who were our colonial masters. And gradually we found out that most of these things were being done OEM. We go to face and meet these suppliers there and all that. They were overpricing their goods and then surcharging them on the Ghanaian. After seeing China, I think the evidence is so clear. Most people have been able.
So things are cheaper.
Cheaper, and then it ensures profits.
But the quality is the quality the same?
Quality is relative. If even somebody make OEM and send it to UK, and the quality is not good, it's not good.
Where OEM is original equipment manufacturer.
Exactly. So when you go there, it depends on your negotiating skills. Don't also forget that China is the hub of manufacturing in the whole of the world. And for that matter, we cannot depart as a nation from that.
So what kind of things do you guys get from China?
We get a whole lot of things. Look at your room here, the setup. Almost everything is coming from China. The ceiling fan, the air conditions, the confectionaries, and the plastics, and
everything.
Almost everything.
So you make profit, things are cheaper from China?
Yeah, we do that, but don't also forget that our main preoccupation is not just to do the trading, it's the breeding grounds, the importation, the trading that we do, that will metamorphose us into the mainstream manufacturing and other positive areas. Yeah.
So do you learn manufacturing from the Chinese?
We see a lot of things.
So when you go to China, do you visit the factories?
Yeah, we have fairs that they do. So this 1D1F that was coming, I said that let's do machine fair. And that is the bane, because most people even have been buying goods without knowing the sort of machines that produce them. So we said that, because let me give you this scenario. Somebody have been buying buttons. He has made a lot of millions out of this. And then he went to machine fair and he saw the machine that produced the button. This item they call haberdashery. And then he saw the machinery that produced this thing, and it was only $5,000. Then he said that I buy so much, and then I could easily have acquired the machine itself. So when we travel and see this opening, we also bring them. So easy things like the practice you've seen that people are started doing it is because of our interaction.
But the textile manufacturers, for example, say their industry is being destroyed because there are cheap imports from China. So their manufacturing sector is destroyed because people like you can go to China and bring sometimes imitation textiles with our own designs, and then it's because they have economies of scale, they can produce it cheaper.
That argument is flawed. Because as you are saying, if it is patented, then you are looking at the patent, and then the laws are there to guide you. They are only because we should also sometimes it becomes even difficult to access goods from the local manufacturers. They have cheats that you have to have before you can buy. They have distributors, and you have the money, and you have to queue for these things. So people do not travel for the sake of traveling, and sometimes too we do go out there because we source the credit there. Well, they will give you suppliers credit, sometimes 150 days, and then when you come here you have to queue, and at the same time you have to cough the money before these things are given to you. So when we do this, then we also migrate. It's not only the trading, then we go, well, they are talking about their staff. You have your patent, you have the advert for it, you have the goodwill and all that, and then you dwell on it, and then you make sure that it becomes competitive with the other designs that are coming in. But if a patent is copied, then you have every right.
Good. So you've focused on the good. I'll come to some of the negatives soon. But Dr. Lloyd, I noticed you were nodding vigorously as he was talking. You seem to agree that there are lots of benefits from us opening up to China in terms of the goods we sell and that kind of thing.
Well, I think the point that he made, which sometimes is lost, is that trade, as he described it, is not simply about the trade. The literature shows that as our traders engage with the Chinese, interact with them and the rest of them, that is how they acquire, the know-how, the experience, the grit, to be able to then transition to manufacturing. And some of the leading manufacturers that we know in Ghana, Palace Biscuit and the rest of them, were traders right on the streets of Accra, in the central business district, etc., etc. So sometimes we misinterpret and misunderstand what is going on. The fact that they move into Asia, exposes them to the concourses of international trade. All of the the processes, the finesse and the understandings. You can't just be in Accra and get a global view and then attempt to penetrate. You have to get exposed to what is out there.
But what about the argument that exposure to cheap Chinese imports leads us into deindustrialization? That it's easier. Look at the textile sector, and there are many sectors like that where, because China can produce cheaper, printing is destroyed, textiles gone. Many industries in Ghana which used to do light manufacturing, the Chinese do it better, so we only buy and sell. But for our long-term economic well-being, is that a good idea?
But is it the Chinese or your open trade system? What is the fundamental construct upon which you run your economy? You are running a marginally open liberal economy, superintended by WTO rules. And most of our people, policymakers, think you need to have a liberalized, open. We have the greatest experiment in capitalism, in Africa now. No economy in the world historically, developed by opening up the way we have, right? Not the Dutch, not the English, not the Americans,
not the Chinese, not the Koreans,
yes,
not the Japanese.
Nobody has done that.
So in discussing our relationship with them, shouldn't we be concerned that we are opening up to them?
They are more fundamental problem, but we are not thinking.
No, but okay.
And then we go for the easy target.
I'm just trying to understand
so the opening is part.
But does that not endorse the point that in opening up to them, it's just going to worsen what has already been a bad economic story?
But it means you are not smart, because the point is, how do they? We know from the information that Ghanaians and Africans go and say, print this for me, or I want this cheaper, less quality. When you go to the Chinese man, they'll do it for you.
So it's our lack of our.
What are you talking about? We set ourselves up and then we cry. Go to Shenzhen. He knows this one is in there.
So we shouldn't.
He knows what goes on.
We shouldn't blame. I mean, for example, I'll give an example, right? So here you are with David. I'll come to you. You are building a Cape Coast Stadium or the Tamale Stadium.
Yes.
They give you money. They don't even give you physical money. You sign a deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They bring the parts.
Yes.
And the people to build the stadium.
Yeah.
You have young men who need work here. You obviously can't tell me that when the Americans or British were here, they were bringing workers, laborers to come and build.
Asleep.
Why are you speaking about Ghana as if you are a third party?
No,
we are part of the system.
Yes, but I have to stand back and analyze.
Why? So there are models. There are different models.
Let me give you an
Somebody
example.
can build a stadium for you, give you the money, you buy the parts, and you use your own labor.
Yes.
This person, you don't see the money. He builds the stadium. He brings laborers. To come and do the digging.
So why didn't you stick to the old model?
Well, it's not working. But it's not working either.
So yes, but the point is the new alternative. If you are smart, you could leverage it to your advantage.
In what way?
Negotiate properly.
The guy has 87 million unemployed people
Yes.
who need work because of technology.
Yes.
And
But
they need somewhere to work.
But he also needs you in many ways.
He needs your resources.
Yes, and even your market. Even an inch of it, they are interested. Ask yourself why they are here in droves.
All right, let me take a pause and come to David. So I will make you sort of my analyst in a different sense. Do you get where we are going? I feel it's almost like we have no choice, right? The Western world were whipping us with higher technology, selling things at a higher price. The Chinese have given us cheaper things. But now, even we are not getting the access to the labor to produce anything. So where are we? How did we get here?
I think it's a general issue of our lack of strategy all the time. I mean, we haven't always been like this. There have been times that we have had strategy. And indeed, we do even have strategy currently, but in a hodgepodge, a bit of disorganized manner. And I think perhaps it will evolve as we go along. And that's why some of these discussions are quite important. But let me just illustrate. And at times we overemphasize the fact that the Chinese labor and Chinese, as it were, businesses come only on the back of Chinese money. And I won't point you very far. The N1 was built by American money, but it was built by Chinese. That was the compact one, the 547 million, the largest amount of it, about $200 million or so, built the N1. But the Chinese won the contract. That's American money, done under international competitive bidding. Now I'll take you back to the 60s, where the largest structure project ever done in this country, the so-called Job 600, which houses the State House, etc., were done by Ghanaians within a period of 15 months. But when we had to repair it, we had to get a Chinese to do it. So what that tells you is that we've not been able to sustain our growth over time. And I'll give you another example. In Angola, the Wambo province actually hired the State Construction Corporation in the 90s in Ghana to build over 3,000 houses there. We couldn't deliver. Today, it is being built by the Chinese. Now, so I don't think there is any fixation with anybody about Chinese. It's about capacity to deliver. And where you don't have strategy, and the lack of strategy is also not backed by capacity, you face these things. I think what has to happen now is, with this realization and with this opportunity, we need to begin to put the right strategy in place to ensure that we capitalize on this opportunity. Otherwise, we will continue complaining.
Do you agree, Lloyd, that we don't have a strategy for China?
I've written about this in the last 20 years. There's no strategy.
There's no strategy.
Does the Ghana government have a China policy document? The last time we held the Joint Commission for Cooperation meeting was in 2017. It was the fourth time in 60 years. And the Joint Commission for Cooperation is how you engage, on a bilateral level. And so when you do the calculation, it means that, in the last how many years, over decades, every other decade, we hold one meeting.
Does any other country have a China strategy that you know of?
No, I mean, if you take South Africa, if you take Rwanda, if you take Egypt, don't forget, the relationship between them and China is what they call a comprehensive strategic partnership. which is an advanced one. Ghana's own is merely a strategic partnership, and the rest of the other African countries that are asleep, right? So it's just about 4 countries in Africa that have a comprehensive strategic partnership with China.
Let's do a bit of history. A friend of mine sent me a message when I announced the program. He says, Bernard, both Nkrumah and Du Bois were courted the Chinese since before 57. When Nkrumah visited China during Mao's time, he was received by throngs of Chinese who had lined the streets to welcome him. They too had been used and abused by the British, French and Americans, including the period of gunboat diplomacy and opium. Remember British clubs in China with signs, no Chinese and dogs allowed. But today, unless we in Africa get our own acts together, we'll be revisiting a new colonialism all over again. Talk to me a bit about what you know about Nkrumah's attempts to deal with the Chinese, and how come we haven't leveraged that? Because Nkrumah used to be even referred to his ideas. He frequented China quite a bit.
I think, let me put it this way, and if you listen to what the president Nana Addo said in China, he actually made reference to Nkrumah's court in China. He made reference to another significant event where President Kufuor was the one who endorsed China getting into the UN Security Council, and then his visit. And then of course the visit prior to him, that's President Mills. So there has been over time a series of attempts to court China. I think what we need to do more of now is that type of strategy that takes advantage of the opportunity. Let me just elaborate on some of these things. The lessons that we need to learn, and for me there are 2 key lessons. One lesson that we need to learn are the mistakes we made in earlier projects or earlier engagement with the Chinese. So that, for example, we've not leveraged technology transfer, and that we need to do much better of. The more important one is to learn the lessons as to how China itself got here.
Okay.
At the time Nkrumah went to China, China wasn't what it is today. Indeed, as late as the 80s, China wasn't what it is today. But you will find that what we are collecting from China today actually is money generated from state capital. And yet we have experimented with extreme capitalism, perhaps capitalism worse than that in America. So if China can grow through meritocracy and state capital, are there lessons we can learn from it? The other lesson we can learn from it is the need for local content. If you notice a complaint that Americans make, it is because the Chinese insist on local content when you engage with China. These are some of the things that we need to do, and if we don't do that, it doesn't matter how much we engage with any country whatsoever. The last point I need to make on this is that there's a confluence of disruptive events which appear to be coming together. You can't talk about China in isolation without talking about Belt and Road and talking about the CFTA, and I'm sure you'll be coming on Belt and Road. But if you have a situation where the Continental Free Trade Agreement is coinciding with China's rise and China's support for Africa, there are certain things we need to do. If you notice, one of the key things Jinping kept talking about was the single air transport market. China is currently producing its own aircraft. If a key pillar of the CFTA is for Africa to have a single air transport market, we have killed our Ghana Airways and killed all our airlines. And we've not taken advantage of our aluminium based industrialization based on bauxite to be able to produce parts for the aircraft industry. So this is a situation where we need to begin now, and I don't like to look back and compare the present, using the present to judge the past. I want us to be able to begin now and say, okay, what do we do now? And that's the kind of policies I want to, promote and say that this is an opportunity for us to make a change and move forward.
Let me run through some of
maybe even we are late, you know.
Okay, quick points.
But anyway.
Yeah. I think the point is straightforward. It's our inability to read through what China is doing. You see, we are not going into these things as equal partners. Normally, we think that we are the beneficiaries, and that's very, very wrong.
Dangerous as well.
China is very, very clever on these things. And sometimes if you go and then they hand this thing to you, you think that they are giving to you on silver platter. It's not until we see through that they are making a huge advantage of these loans that they are giving before we will sit up and negotiate.
So on that point, let me read some of the 8 agreements we signed and quick comments. So $2 billion economic cooperation to finance roads, infrastructure, and railways. And then we have the 200 million Chinese yuan to assist implementation of Akufo-Addo's economic agenda. We have 1,000 boreholes across the country. Jamestown Fishing Port Complex, that's number 4. Cape Coast Sports Complex, number 5. Phase 2 of the University of Allied and Health Sciences, that's number 6. Defense Cooperation Agreement, $7.3 million to train Ghana Armed Forces, peacekeepers, and stuff like that. And then there's one on maternal health. It looks like the 2 billion bauxite is the biggest and the most significant. How typical is this idea to the way China works? So essentially you're saying you're going to process, mine your bauxite, refine it, sell $2 billion worth of it to the Chinese over a 12-year period, and they will provide you a whole list of roads.
I think, let me answer that. I'm not a government spokesman, but I think I've had the opportunity to read the barter agreement and to look at the strategy the government adopting in this, and at times maybe the story is not properly being told, because the barter agreement has a 3-year moratorium, and this went to parliament, and that 3-year moratorium, there is required to be built a refinery.
Yes.
And the refinery will be producing alumina. Now, the policy that the government has to put in place relating to that, in my view, is a restriction as much as possible on bauxite exports. Because if you do not restrict bauxite exports or even ban it at some point, you may have a situation where you may have your refinery, but the bauxite have been shipped out. So these are some of the strategies we need to put in place. So on the assumption that we will have the refinery in place, and let me give you some data. Bauxite in this raw state has dropped in terms of metric ton, dollar per metric ton, from $60 to $30 over the last 3 years. But bauxite in its refined state has moved from $600 per metric ton for alumina to aluminium when you refine it, and we have about the only smelter in Africa here, all the way to profiles to $6,000 per metric ton if you take it in equivalent of the bauxite. So value addition has something to go for it, which is why the government's policy of doing value addition is right. But if we do not ensure that we have enforced that policy, 3 years from now, the alumina will not be there to pay for that. So yes, the strategy for that is right.
But on the principle that the price is going up, are you not locking yourself in by saying you are selling them $2 billion worth?
And that's why I tried to make that correction. That is not what the agreement says. The agreement is looking for a value addition. So what we have to do is to first ban the raw material export and add the value to as much as we can, up to from $30 to 6,000 metric tons in equivalent, dollars per metric ton in equivalence. That's what we need to do. So Ghana doesn't lack vision or strategy as such. It's the implementation. The policy is actually right. It is implementing it and ensuring that that is done. Otherwise, 3 years from now, you and I will be sitting.
But you think it's a good policy that you are going to get roads by selling your processed raw material to somebody for a period of 12 years?
Again, the question is whether you need the roads and whether or not the roads will be done in places that enable us access the bauxite to enable us to build the refinery. So those are details that
the list is in the budget. The list of roads.
I understand that, and we know where the bauxite is located.
Yes.
It's in 3.
But my question is, somebody is going to be buying your bauxite for this to benefit. He could finish your road in 2 years. And by the time the 15 years is over, your road would have been.
But when you borrow 10 billion, when you borrow 2 billion, you have an amortization period to repay. So the amortization period to repay is what will determine. Now, the more you export high value products, the quicker you can pay. The more if you're exporting 30 metric ton at $30, you are going to take a much longer time to pay. And China perhaps will at some point begin to realize the security if you're unable to pay. That is why the value addition policy is very important. I hope you understand what I mean.
I get, but I'm just asking whether what we get at the end of the day is enough to merit building the refinery.
More than that, because for example, the studies have shown that over a period of about 50 years, you are talking about 500 billion to $1 trillion industry. There are studies to prove this. You see, there is nothing new under the sun. Bauxite to aluminium studies have been done in Ghana since 1922. And by the time in Nkrumah's time they were building the smelter, Ghana's economy was going to be lifted to the next level, as it were. So we are basically 60 years late all that happened was that when the Americans or Kaiser pulled out of building the refinery and left it at the smelter level, then everything changed. Then we all know the geopolitics that resulted in that.
Okay.
So essentially, we are going back to what ought to have been done 60 years ago. And the critical point I like to make is the way this coincides with other things. If you do have a continental free trade agreement, don't forget that. That's a $3.5 trillion economy we are creating in Africa. The more we are able to add value and export, the better we can take advantage and have a multiplier effect on our economy.
But you see, we are being very syrupy about this. You know, when Mills went to China in 2010, he got $13 billion. We are getting $2 billion.
13 in pledges.
Yes, and there's agreements.
How much
agreements and all of that? Yes, in the long run, we bungled it, right? So now, if you compare to where we started from and where we are, it's a climb down, right? You look at some of the things that came with the 13 billion, right? The CDB loan, for example, was supposed to be 3 billion, right? It involved the what do you call it? The Western Corridor project and all of that, right? There was corruption, right? There were problems. In the long run, we were left with just about $1 billion, right? So we have to do a comparative.
Are you
right?
saying it was corruption that prevented us from accessing the $3 billion?
And then our own mess.
Are you speaking as a fact?
And our own mess, yes. And then
I think he doesn't agree with you.
No, let me finish. There was another problem with it. The what do you call it? Oil revenue management law that we passed, right? We went in for the Chinese money, realized that there was a problem. We wanted to go back to amend, right? And so we had all of this. The Chinese said, look, if you are going back to amend all of that, the cost will be yours, yada, 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 yada. We were incompetent, right? So I am saying that 2 billion compared to where we started from, right, shows clearly that.
But the 2 billion is just one. I listed 8 things. The 2 billion was just
all
one.
of those things, boreholes. I mean, that is part.
But there are other things.
That is part of our strategic weakness. Stadium. Yeah, I mean,
Jamestown fishing ports.
Yeah, I mean,
whole University of Allied Sciences.
The point
railways.
The point is, I mean, boreholes, they are important, but the key question is
Defense Corporation.
What really do you want in terms of engaging China?
Just hold on. What did you want to say about
the transformative?
But at times we don't use data. And Ghanaians, we are one group of people who never learn any lessons. The problem with drawing down the CDB money from Professor Mills has nothing to do with corruption. It has nothing to do with corruption. It has everything to do with our general lack of capacity to draw down money. And I want to move away from China.
Yes.
Whenever we take money from the World Bank, as an example, which is not in billions, we just can't draw down the money. Because the capacity to go through all the processes is lacking to the extent that
it is factually established
Lloyd,
that the gas company that was formed inflated contracts with Sinopec.
Well, I don't have that fact.
But that doesn't also mean that the fact that
he did ask you whether you have a category
the details are there.
It was corruption. Well,
I said yes. I'll send you the.
I think that you see.
So there was inflation of contracts.
I'll allow him to finish it.
He
should reorganize
and
not say there was no corruption.
I will organize my thoughts the way I have to organize them. When we do borrow money from the World Bank, now we are unable to. Not interrupt when you are talking.
What are you doing?
And you are unable to draw down that money. And as a result, the World Bank imposes upon us a certain percentage for unutilized funds that is allocated. Is it as a result of corruption? No. We just don't have the capacity to draw down money. The only money in this country ever, can I finish? The only money in this country ever given to us that we finish on time is the Millennium Challenge Compact 1. Even then, it was because we had a whip on our neck that if we don't finish it, the money was going to be withdrawn. We just don't have the capacity to draw that money. 2 lessons I want us to learn from China. One is, even if you are giving 500 million, if you don't draw down the money, there's no point, getting that money if you cannot draw down the money. Second, which is a more important point,
okay,
whatever money we take, we must look at the commercial ability to repay. And let's use the Professor Mills attempt as an example. You will notice that out of the 2 billion, we drew down the first 850 million to build a gas plant. That gas plant is enough to repay the rest of the money. So what you should be looking at in the 2 billion barter agreement is which aspect of it is commercial that will finance the remaining like military and defense part, which is not commercial. That's what you should be looking at.
We'll take a short break. My guests are really debating China. I want to come back to look at global geopolitics of China. I have a very interesting letter that about 12 senators signed to present to the U.S. Foreign Secretary. They are not happy with the Chinese at all. We'll also talk about their BELT project that seems to be raising a lot of eyebrows. And ask Guta as well their own experience with Chinese in their retail space. So they say they get good business from the Chinese, but are the Chinese taking over their businesses? We'll read your messages as well. Don't go away.
We spice up your mornings with culturally enriched conversations, social interviews, and policy-oriented discussions that will keep you updated on the progress of the nation.
Because we're giving only those in their third trimester. So in the next 3 months, those in their second would be ready to receive the kits. And we're taking data at registration, which is before they take the kits, at delivery and post-delivery, so that we can analyze and we'll see the numbers. So from the numbers and the data that we're collecting, we would know what has worked, what hasn't worked, you know.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Let your voice be heard with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. Join us for breakfast daily, only on City TV.
Quero ver todo mundo balançando. Ninguém pode ficar parado. É só loucura. Mexe.
Witness the twisted and tangled story of betrayal, greed, vengeance, and love in the award-winning Brazil Avenue. Carminia, a woman led by greed, gets rid of her husband, who is Rita's father, and sends Rita away to a filthy landfill. Rita finds love in Batata, but they are soon separated by adoption into different families, far away from each other. Many years later, all paths cross again, as Rita, now a renowned chef, seeks to pay back her stepmother for taking away her happiness as a child. It's a story of twists, turns, suspense, and thrilling action in Brazil Avenue. Brazil Avenue, coming soon only on City TV. Brazil Avenue.
Welcome back. This is The Point of View. We're discussing our deals or dealings with China, the good, the bad, the ugly. And my guests are very interesting. One is a man who runs an institute at Legon which deals into Asian relations. One is an international lawyer, and then the other one is on the ground. They trade with the Chinese. So your comments are welcome. Let's read a few. Good evening, Bernard. In the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. In the abundance of natural resources, we are going around making lala su lala. This is coming from his home. He hasn't even referred to China. He's just not happy. Ato Apia from Gomoa Akropon. My problem is not government borrowing money from these Chinese, but my issue is as soon as they get the money, they come and inflate the price of the project, and at times even nothing is done at all. These Chinese are very smart in such deals, which our government lacks certain knowledge on these deals. I think the government should include Ghanaian brains in this bauxite and refinery deal. What if China abandons the project just as America did years ago? It's time we used our own. This is Daniel from Tema. Has Ghana asked a question of what did all these countries want from us? Let's be careful about these loans. Emmanuel from Kasua. There's a long one from Kweku in Dansoman. He says, good evening, Bernard. China is accused by US, Mr. Trump, that it forces US firms to transfer technology to their Chinese counterparts or business partners in return for access to the country's 1.4 billion citizens. How true is this? It's yet to be proven, even though I believe it. What smart ways are we also getting with the Chinese? Whether we like it or not, there's nothing like a win-win in trade. One has to benefit more or one has to lose. Win-win is only a diplomatic term. We seem so desperate that we have less strength in negotiating. The Chinese surely have a weakness. We need to research and gain something. Kweku Nansoman. Let me do two quick things. Let me come to Guta again. You said you got great deals from China. Things are cheaper. You learn industrialization from them. But some of your members were on the streets accusing GIPC and Trade Ministry of allowing foreigners to take over retail trade. And some of the foreigners, we are told, included Chinese and also Nigerians. So it's almost like even though you are benefiting from them, they are also harassing your own market.
Don't forget that China has got its own strategies. It's becoming a power. And then the strategies that he's gotten in place, even though you might seem that you are getting some benefit from it, if you do not analyze and dissect whatever you are doing, we are playing on the wrong side. But all this China is doing is influence and dominance. And they are using a very powerful strategy to recycle their capital. The monies that they are giving to us is as a result that they want to create business for their indigents and the job that you talk about. And so if we are a sovereign country, then we have to make sure that the sanctity of our sovereignty is assured. And this is what my problem is. Because if we go out there and then think that we are just the beneficiaries and they are not having anything, it means that you'll be so suppressed for you to even mend your own investment laws and all that.
So they have done this. So I want to be specific. What are they doing in retail trade?
Yeah, because we are not able to go see right in the face of China and say that you are intruding on the retail sector, where because you even want to go into manufacturing. That's what the 1D, 1F is. And then there's a chunk of these competitors from China dominating in the area that is not for them. And yet, because of arrangements such as this, the loans and all that, you find it difficult even to enforce your own laws. This is what I'm talking about. And yes, so if we are...
How predominant are Chinese people in retail trade? And what are they selling?
So predominant that they've captured so many countries. What they do, they come and then they build Chinatowns and all that. It's the same employment that you were talking about, the 87 million plus and all that. These are all deliberate.
Just explain. So are you saying that Chinatown is part of the retail trade? Because your argument has been about retail trade.
Yeah, Chinatown is that because they open these malls for the single entity shops to be open in there. It's not a big supermarket owned by one person.
So they are small shops. So they are doing retail trade.
They are doing retail trade everywhere and all that, and even flouting your investment laws.
So why can't you? Don't you all buy from the same China though?
We buy, but how do we send money to them, and then their manufacturers come here in the guise of retailers, and how can you compete with
the same argument you made? You said, when I said people who do textiles say the Chinese are destroying their textiles, you said they offer better quality for we the Ghanaians to buy. So if I go to China Mall at the motorway and I can get a shirt cheaper, why should I buy it from you because you put something on it?
So you sell it cheaper when you are doing that in the framework of the law. We don't care if you even dash your goods, but we are talking about the law. It's a precept of the Ghanaian.
So now that it's affecting you, you are talking about the law. Because you just told me that the argument by the people who do textiles, that their companies are collapsing because you go and the printers, you say that in China you get it cheaper. Now if I will go to a China mall and buy something cheaper, why should I buy it from you?
These are the indigenous go. And then we have every right to trade, and we trade where we can get our profits. Please, nothing can be taken away from that. And we are
getting arguments. It's the same thing, right?
No. Talking about the same thing. It purely in terms of market transactions.
Yeah.
But economics is also about nationalism.
And that was the point I made to him, that if Japan textile and Kosovo textile has collapsed.
Yes.
Because Chinese people can manufacture the textile cheaper.
Yes.
And you go and buy it and sell it to us. Right? And I give you example not just of textiles. I give you examples of other industries.
They go and buy the textiles
from China and sell to us, and the people manufacturing it here are getting their business destroyed.
But I mean, there's a fact that we refuse to face as Ghanaians. there are interests which at times conflict. The interest of a group who import items conflicts with an interest of a group of people who want to manufacture locally. It's natural. So if as a nation we believe that if we allow wholesale import of everything, we are going to kill jobs, which is what we are doing, then a conscious effort to restrict wholesale import of, for example, textiles is necessary. But the moment you do that, if Guta and their team take placards and put pressure on government, and government then opens up and allow the imports, then they turn around to now want to impose limits on the laws and now call on the law because Chinese have invaded the area. But if Chinese have invaded the area and the Nigerians have invaded the area, you have the same problem because they are all foreigners. We have to decide as a nation, do we want to add value? If so, then there are certain things we don't want to import. Why do we want to import kente from China? Why do I want to import this from China? Yes, so there should be a conscious effort on the part of our policy makers that there are certain areas that we don't want to allow imports.
But the importers won't agree. One of them is sitting here.
And that's the point.
They won't agree to what?
So, see, the point he's making is that if we can import everything we need, we will never industrialize. So you need to agree that some of the things you import, we need to put limits on them so we can nurture our infant industry.
And that's what I'm saying. We want to.
That's why it says the law.
We want even to move from importation even to manufacturing. And what is the pull factor? The pull factor where even the manufacturers are not even making it is the fact that they allow these Chinese to come with the goods. The law, because we are driving our investment laws, and our investment law we drive and say this is the area that we want foreigners to go.
But you see, what I don't understand what you're saying is that you say when you trade, you eventually will manufacture. But the manufacturing companies that you are emulating are all getting destroyed because you are getting cheaper goods from China.
They are not
so your present day benefit
manufacturing policy and trade policy.
Yeah, why should it be different? Why can't you synchronize it?
Yeah, you can
you
can synchronize.
What are you talking about?
But if you are
isn't it the same Alan Chamati in charge of manufacturing and in charge of trading?
If you are seeing that trade obviously is having a detrimental effect on your manufacturing, then you need a double pincer approach. How do you increase the muscle of the producers and also deal with the influx, right?
Yes.
And also allow the traders to trade according to law. So you need a balance.
Everybody can't be happy.
Of course.
So that's why your long term strategy. But that's no, it's not.
Everybody will not.
You see, you are not understanding me. And I'm simply saying that.
Yeah.
The same way you say, because it's cheaper to buy from China, you will import. And that the textile manufacturers don't have an argument. The new town printers don't have an argument. I can also say to you that if I'm buying a shirt, I'll go to China Mall and buy it. I won't buy it from you.
Yeah, go to China Mall and buy it. So far as he's doing the business in the right frame of the law.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
No, they are using the law.
No, it's not the law.
You can't even do that in China.
It's because what you said.
Yes.
We are trying to direct investment to where it should go.
I am trying to point out to you that every economic policy must be done within a framework of the law, a national goal, not just the law. You see, because you can follow the law and destroy your economy. That's the point I'm making to you.
Yeah, so that's the direction of your investment. So if you can even propose that we should ban importation so that manufacturing can stand in isolation, so be it. But then let me tell you, manufacturing is never complete unless it reaches to the final consumer. We are, as much as we import, we also buy the manufacturing from the manufacturers.
Okay.
You understand? They cannot sell their products. And then the shortfalls that we have is what we bring in. The shortfalls. Otherwise, we sell the goods for the manufacturers. And then we have the Chinese. If the Chinese come, does it go and buy from the local manufacturers? No.
So,
and that's why they
so let me bring in two points. The president said during his speech to Xi Jinping that they will not allow people to come and destroy an environment in the name of mining, right? President Xi also said that Chinese companies should obey local laws. Exactly. They should be corporately responsible, and they should be environmentally responsible. There are also people who feel that the standards that Chinese government applies to Chinese companies in China, those standards don't apply to Chinese companies outside China. So if you go to China and you produce tomato factory and you pollute the gutters, you'll be shut down. But you can do it in Ghana because the Ghana government's capacity is weak to enforce. Now, some people say that if you compare Western investments in Africa to Chinese, Western governments have laws, for example, that govern corruption. So even if you're an American company and you misbehave yourself in South Sudan, American law will come after you. Some people feel Chinese government needs to go beyond the rhetoric to actually start whipping its companies abroad to do the right thing environmentally, in terms of corruption, and also CSR. What do you say?
At times we make it look as if Chinese are investing only in Ghana. In fact, the UK's Hinkley nuclear plant is being built by the Chinese. So the Chinese are not only investing in Ghana, the Chinese are investing in the US. How come they can invest in China and invest in UK, invest in US, invest in UK right, but they don't invest right here? We are not
capacity.
No, it's more than the question of capacity.
What is it?
We close our eyes to the law. And I'll give you an example. This galamsey business. At some point, if you recall, Chinese miners were deported. And in China, passport is not a right like Ghana. The Chinese government can actually take your passport from you to the extent that the government of Ghana can prove that these people were engaged in illegal mining. There is a suspicion that people who were in the opposition of responsibility actually gave some of the passports back to Chinese to go back and do the galamsey. So as a people, the way we enforce our laws itself allow foreigners to abuse our processes. They are Ghanaians, and again, going back to Guta, who go to China. And in China, the good thing about China I like, and I wish we could introduce those policies here, they encourage their local industries to grow by allowing them to manufacture all kinds of standards. You can manufacture a pen in China, which is cheap and will get damaged in a day. Then you can also manufacture the pen, which is earmarked for the European market. So anybody can afford a pen. In Ghana, we set our standards so high that the person who is an incubator must manufacture according to American standards. So you will see that Amoah, our exports are dropping. As throughout Africa, our exports have dropped from 24 billion to 11 billion over 5 years. Once our trade with China has grown from 11 to $239 billion over the same period. How come? Because a typical Guta person may, and I'm not saying that's definitely the case, will go to China and he will buy this table and he will say he wants that low quality, come and sell it to me high, so he will make a high margin. He cannot do the same thing in China, nor do it in America. So it is for us to say that you cannot bring cheap products from China, but I will allow you to produce cheap products in Ghana. And as you are producing the cheap products, I encourage you until you get to the right quality, then you can export. If we don't do that, we will have all these monies, but at the end of the day, we won't encourage our industries. Those are some of the ideas that we need to implement.
I want to announce to viewers that it's 5 minutes to top of the hour, but we've been given 15 more minutes. So we are going to go to a quarter past the hour. So take your time in your analysis.
It's a strategy and
so
implementation.
you are rejecting the argument that Chinese, because China is not a global superpower, and Chinese government can and should force its companies operating in countries with, least developed countries to act more responsibly. You don't agree with that?
I do, but I think the responsibility rests more with us. Tell me. Let's be sincere.
No, but I know that.
No.
I know that.
Let's be sincere. Is there any country in the world that people can destroy their rivers like the way they did ours? I mean, be frank. And are you telling me that Chinese came to this country and just amassed our lands? Were they sold by chiefs? So you are saying I'm asking the wrong question if I don't focus the issue on Ghanaians. Yes.
If I focus on China's power. Don't forget that when initial Stop Galamsey now started, some people felt the Chinese ambassador in Ghana was not very happy with the way the story was being carried, and they felt that there could be retaliations in the way they withheld certain kinds of support.
But anybody can choose not to be happy with it. You have the American letter from the Senate.
I'll read that soon.
They're already complaining about the fact that we are cooperating with China.
Okay, let me try Lloyd. Please, you get what I'm saying. I'm trying to argue. Of course, I'm not saying Ghana should not enforce its laws. But as a country grows in influence and its companies work in least developed countries, you surely would expect that the Chinese government would place some restrictions on the way its companies operate in other countries.
But the way you pose the question infantilizes the African countries.
But are they not infants? Look, 53 of them are there.
Yeah,
my brother.
But of course,
honestly, honestly,
there's that reality, right? But let's flip the question the other way. What if the Chinese government doesn't do what it is that you are arguing for?
Then things worsen.
Yeah. So really, in the long run, we are on our own.
So if you don't think it is even going to work even if Chinese government raise the bar for its companies.
The point is the Chinese will tell you that they have their laws, right? The Chinese have a framework of strict laws. You understand? immigration laws, laws on standards, and the rest of it. In China, there are rules and regulations. Falugwezi, as they call it.
Falu.
Right? You know, so for them, they are applying the law, right? Don't forget also that China is sensitive about sovereignty of other countries. This is because of the opium wars and all of their history, where you had external powers coming in there to dominate. So China is sensitive. Don't forget there's also the Taiwan issue and all of those things, right? So there's a limit to the extent to which it will want to push and say that, look, these companies that are of Chinese origin or Chinese connected, you know, should function in X and Y and Z way. They will say, look, you have laws there, right? Apply them. That's how they view the world.
And you are saying that. So are you saying that if we round up all Galamsey people and we send them back to China tomorrow morning, Beijing will not retaliate?
The problem with I'll come to that. The problem with your question is also this. You see, you frame it in the way the West or Western thought views the world.
I admit that.
Yeah, but the Chinese have a different view of the world. That does not always sit with the way the West sees it. Right? So the West says, you have law, you know, what your companies do, enforce it. Right? The Chinese say, look, you have laws, let the countries in question apply it.
You say I infantilize the African countries, but you know objectively that enforcement of rules very, very weak in our country.
But then I think there's an important point to address.
The point is this.
Yes.
The point is this. If we are serious about transforming our countries, about national development and the rest of them, why would we allow our laws not to be applied?
Well, that's the question we all cannot answer. But
for example,
but we all know that.
For example, you have red lights. And people,
I don't even know why people are arguing with what I'm saying. Are you telling me?
Let me point out why.
No, I am not doing an ideal program. I'm talking about reality.
No, practically, I need to point out to you why. Let's assume the Chinese government did what you are saying. Let's assume that.
Yes.
The only way they can do that is if a Chinese came here and flouted the laws, and our people did not enforce it. Then we have to bring Chinese police here to enforce it. No, even if the Chinese government said that you have to do that, somebody here must still tell the Chinese that your companies came here and flouted the law. So if we fail to implement our law, it's our fault.
Because are we babies?
No, I agree with that.
We're not babies.
But you know that.
Don't we protect our presidents?
Well, that's what we do. But we don't protect our environment.
So we have refused to do what we should do. And now we say Chinese is you, enforce the law.
I'll read some more comments, but I want to announce that we've been given 15 more minutes. So it's 15 minutes past the hour when we'll close, because I have 3 guests. They have so much to say. 1 hour is not enough, and my producer, I want to thank you. So Africa owes China 130 billion collectively. This is 2015 figures. The Americans say, and I'm framing it in the Western again, I have no problem with that. Debt trap diplomacy.
You can't do otherwise.
No, just answer it.
I have a problem with that actually.
I'm reading a U.S. Senate letter, so there's no way I can't reframe it. Right? So this is what it is. I can't create a new theory.
Of course.
So they've written to Secretary Mike Pompeo and Mnuchin. It's a long letter, and it's signed by Marco Rubio. These are senators, Ted Cruz and co. This is just a month ago, 3rd August 2018. We write to express our concern over bailouts to the International Monetary Fund by countries who have accepted, quote, predatory Chinese infrastructure financing. And then they list a long list of things. IMF agreed $1.5 billion bailout to Sri Lanka due to unsustainable debts to China. And then it's been reported that the incoming government of Pakistan will pursue an IMF bailout due to rising deficit debt problems. These financial crises illustrate the dangers of China's debt trap diplomacy. That's how they couch it. And its Belt and Road Initiative to developing countries, as well as national security threat they pose to the US. So very interesting mixture of things. It's a danger to developing countries. It's a threat to our national security and our interests. They go on and on and on. And they end by giving examples of Djibouti, Montenegro. So it's not just China. They say Beijing's attempt to, listen to this, weaponize capital. Weaponized capital is not just limited to Asia and Africa, but extends to Europe. In 2014, Montenegro and China came to an agreement to construct a highway that links the port of Bar and Montenegro's transport network with Serbia and other Balkan countries. Then they give a long list of things. In the light of the IMF's potential bailout of Pakistan in the coming months, we respectfully request a response to the following questions. how do you plan to raise the dangers of Chinese infrastructure financing through BRI with the IMF? Do you have the additional countries? Do you believe that additional countries will ask for a bailout from the IMF due to BRI countries? And then they end by quoting Xi Jinping's 19th Party Congress statement. It says, Xi declared, China's development does not pose a threat to any other country. No matter what stage of development it reaches, China will never seek hegemony or engage in expansion. And I'll come to global geopolitics. It is apparent that this statement is fraudulently false, and that the goal of BRI is the creation of an economic world order ultimately dominated by China. It is imperative that the United States counters China's attempt to hold other countries financially hostage and force ransoms that further its geostrategic goals. So, are you interpreting the question I asked within this framework that a lot of the constructs the Western world puts to raise questions about China's approach is not because they are concerned about our state, but it's because they are afraid that the Chinese actually are competing with them? Is that how we should look at every criticism to Chinese expansion and Chinese aid?
Well, on one side, yes. I mean, on one side, you need to put the two, together, and more or less deal with them on their own merit, In other words, what I'm saying is the idea that you can get entrapped by loans, it's logically, morally true.
Okay.
Right? You can't discount it.
Okay.
But in the same way the Chinese will entrap you, the US too can entrap you.
Okay.
And Britain and the rest of them.
Okay.
Right? And then on the other hand, of course, there's intense rivalry between the US and China. Number one, the Asia, the Pacific Ocean was a preserve of United States naval power.
Yes.
After the Second World War, this kind of dominance was entrenched once Japan was more or less defeated, right? In recent times, China emerges to power. It extends control over the South China Seas and is now projecting its naval power not just into the Pacific Ocean, but beyond it. And the US, and because of the South China Sea issue, China has effectively created a high-tech wall that is pushing the US out.
Okay.
And so it is losing influence in the world. Okay. So of course these guys would panic and say, look, the US respond, because if you are a superpower, you gain. The US, the dollar is the most used currency.
Yeah.
Because of China now, the yuan, the renminbi is now becoming convertible. The Chinese are building their bank, AIB, and now there's BRICS and all of that. That has implications for the US economy, for the spread of their culture and all of that. Okay. So we need to balance the two.
So there are two arguments which are both correct. Whilst you're answering, I want to put the Belt and Road Initiative map on the screen if I have it, because I think it's a nice depiction of the extent. It goes all the way to Rotterdam.
Yes, Rotterdam. Yeah.
And then if viewers can see this, it's on the screen.
Actually, they are beginning to think of how they will add Latin America to the BRI.
Are you kidding me?
Yes, they are. But then again, I'll go back to the point that we need to look at data.
Okay.
If the allegation of the senators, including Ted Cruz and the rest, is that
Marco Rubio,
and Marco Rubio is, and remember, these people are presidential ambitions of their own.
Yes.
If the argument is that if Africa is born from China, we are going to enter into a
Africa, Sri Lanka, everybody.
Yeah, we're going to enter into a debt trap.
And the US itself.
I wouldn't take you far.
Okay.
What about Greece? Greece borrowed solely from the IMF and went into a debt trap. So was Argentina. Argentina's economy collapsed before. In fact, Greece very recently.
And it's now on the verge. Argentina,
Portugal, Italy. These economies almost collapsed on the back of IMF. Now take a situation where the same IMF World Bank, which is presided over by US, say that Africa needs $92 billion per annum to fill its infrastructure gap. In that 92 billion, that's sub-Saharan. If you're taking off North Africa, Ghana is supposed to need about 1.3 billion.
Yes.
Nigeria about 31 billion per annum. Now, when we did the IMF program, for that whole period, we are getting about $950 million with all kinds of conditionality attached. If China is going to give you $2 billion over a period of that same period, which one will you go for? I think what the West has forgotten is that having tightened us for a very long period and China rising from nowhere, they seem to be losing the game. Why do you think suddenly Theresa May was in Africa and making the dance in Kenya? Look, one of the things that you must see as a distinction between China, and I'm not exactly arguing for China or against China, one of the things we must see is the Americans' insistence, or the Western world's insistence, of tying money to everything, including whether we democratize before we get money, or whether development by itself will create democracy and institutions. China says it doesn't care. Here is the money, and go ahead and develop.
So why should you have a problem
So
with
why should we have a problem with that? What we need to do is to see, one, how are we going to pay back that money?
Okay.
Two, how do we ensure that China doesn't come here and pour its 1.2 billion people here so that our people are thrown out of work? Three, how do we ensure that technology is transferred? Because they themselves acquire that technology from somewhere, and that's why they're able to export. These are the things we need to be. But as to whether or not we should borrow.
I have a final question for you guys on what are some of the things. No, I'll read some comments. What are some of the things we should get? So there's infrastructure, there's skills transfer. I want you to sort of help us prioritize what we should get from there. And I'll come to you, but let's read a few more questions. Bernard, please, dealing with the Chinese, we have to be careful. Though. They are just like Africans. They will destroy our Etiwa forest too. In any case, where are the technical expertise to check the amount of resources that will be taken out of us? So please, to uphold and strengthen the implementation of our laws. Systems. It's what works everywhere else. Exactly. Ni from Bachona says, Bernard, your team for this evening, this discussion is good. Except the Guta rep, I don't agree with. Our economy should be moving from buy and sell to production. And Guta does not represent the former. It's the buy and sell that is the main killer of our economy that Guta is supporting. So Ni will get a response from Doc very soon. Clement from Atiko says, kindly ask the government whether a change in administration by the Ghanaian people means anything to them. Please, Dr. Bamia should just do his job rather than telling us they are better than an administration we voted for. Oh, but who was mentioning Bamia here? Hi, Ghana people.
Bringing his own.
Good evening, Mr. Avele. I think what you guys are discussing is very good. But we must never lose sight of our economic inadequacies towards the development of this country. This will mean such bilateral pacts geared towards job creation for our Ghanaian people, advancing the cause of industrialization in our country. Else, collecting money will only be visited by our old-time friend, which is corruption. Bernard, which plan to refine the bauxite? I think the bauxite manufacturing plant will be built in the first 3 years. Great. So let's sort of wrap up as I move to the conclusion. I haven't spoken to you in a bit. So Nanado is in China. What do you want him to tell his counterpart, the Chinese president? What do you want the trade minister? Because the road minister is there, trade minister is there, finance minister is there, information minister is there, president is there. What are some of the things you want them to remind the Chinese counterparts of on behalf of the Ghanaian private sector?
Yeah, their total dominance is worrying.
Okay.
Much as even in afar, we are sending it all to them, and then they come here also to take it away from us. It's very pathetic. And that if we have rules, nobody is even stopping anybody. But then if we have rules and engagement, it should be adhered to.
Okay.
So that's what I would tell the president.
I'm going to list the top 10 China projects in Africa, and I'm going to ask the two of you to tell me which African country presents the best model for dealing with China. The best model. Let me just read through quickly. So there's the Lagos Calabar Railway, there's the Mombasa Nairobi Railway, which is done. There's the Addis Ababa Djibouti Railway. There's the Shenzhen of East Africa. There's the A1 Algeria East-West Road. There's New Cairo. There's Congo Brazzaville Special Economic Zone. There's Abuja Kaduna Railway, which is working. And then there's the Modern Fontaine New City, South Africa. These are the top 10 in terms of value of China projects. Using that to enter the discussion about which African countries seem to understand how to relate to the Chinese that Ghana should learn from. Let me start with Lloyd, and then maybe I'll end with David.
I will answer the question.
Well, for me, this is very much monetary based.
This particular one.
Yeah, and I don't flesh the looking at China simply in those terms, you know. But I'll give you an example.
Okay.
And it connects to Asia, not necessarily to China.
Okay.
Right? The Rwandans, you know, were like everybody engaging the Koreans. Don't forget the Koreans had the Korea Africa, forum recently in Busan, right? Now you look at the engagement between Rwanda and Korea. While Ghana, we are looking at volunteer issues and the rest of the loans and the rest of them. What Kagame did was to get the Koreans to build a computer training center in the University of Rwanda. Now, you look at this particular move. It is long-termist. It is futuristic. It is sober, right? These are the sort of things we need, right? What we tend to do is to look for a silver bullet with the Chinese. So big project
at
boom.
once.
Yeah. But they are softer, smaller things.
Okay.
Some of us have researched on, we've been to China, across Asia. Those are the small things that we need, right? And, of course, it's a short program. I've given you an example, and I think...
So you think that it's soft, more measured?
For example, our scholarships. Do we debrief the students who come back?
Okay.
Do we know what they are studying? Is what they are studying connected to a national framework? Or we just say China is giving 1,000 scholarships?
10,000. I was told today that Ghana has the largest number of African students in China, which is very powerful.
I came back, nobody spoke to me.
Oh, I've been speaking to you.
No, I mean government. Okay, you are government now.
Quick one before David. Which country do you think represents the best example? I've been speaking to you every day on my programs.
I hear.
Yes.
Yeah. If you look at the rail infrastructure, then I think Kenya. Yeah.
So rail will help your industry.
Movement of goods and services you can do.
So Nairobi, Mombasa, a good example.
Exactly.
Rail. Interesting analysis on rail. The Ethiopian rail is electricity. The Kenyan rail is diesel. Ethiopian rail is 700 kilometers. Kenya rail is 400. But Ethiopia rail is cheaper than the Kenyan. But that's a different discussion. Ethiopia seemed to figure out a cheaper way of getting bigger things. But that's a different discussion. Your final comments.
Yeah, better just give me a couple of minutes. I will say technically none of the above.
None of them.
It is good to have projects, and I like these infrastructure projects.
Yes.
But until you posit them in the wider strategy, it doesn't really make sense.
Okay.
If you take the Mombasa all the way coming through Nairobi, and it's going to connect Tanzania, Uganda.
Yes. All the way to South Sudan.
And now go back and look at the Belt and Road project very well. You will see that China is re-establishing its maritime road, as they want to call it, link. Okay. If we don't increase our manufacturing base, what will happen is that will become a dumping ground through which China will export its goods. And that's very important. So, yes, why is China funding those railways? And what should we do to take advantage of it? So, they are good projects.
None of the above.
None of the above. However, what can we do? It seems that Ethiopia and Rwanda are beginning to get it a bit right.
Okay.
Rwanda going for the soft approach. Ethiopia beginning to do light manufacturing, and then like Doc was saying, small things. Ethiopia is suddenly becoming the hub for manufacturing leather across Africa. And when it comes to CFTA, they are going to be the ones to benefit. If you ask me, what are the three things we should be doing? One, we should be encouraging the SMEs that they should see China as an alternate market and drive a conscious export to China. And I'll give you simple examples. Shito will be a huge market in China. Okay. I'm telling you.
Like it?
Yes. So you have 1.2 billion people. If you can brand your Shito, and I'm telling you, there are a lot of...
I like it, you call it Shito.
Yeah. I'm using it in the Chinese sense.
How is Shito in Chinese? Shito.
Now, we need to look at how we take advantage of the BRI. Okay. Yes, I like the president's argument that we want to connect to the Maghreb. But if you are connecting to the Maghreb, then we should begin to have a situation where we are using it as our export base to the Maghreb region, and then
30 seconds
getting China to come and create a logistics hub here. Lastly, we need to have a situation where we encourage Chinese companies to relocate here for industrialization, strictly for industrialization. Without these three,
David Ofosu-Dorte is a private legal practitioner with AB and David. Dr. Joseph Obeng, president of Ghana Union Traders Association. Dr. Lloyd Amoah, he is the head of the Center for Asian Studies.